So what I want to talk about is investigative humorism, satire, and how to use what is a strange skill to put together something towards change, whatever that skill is. So what I think is interesting about satire and something that I love about it is it's a head fake. What we're doing here is trying to trick people into caring about different things. Now, for what I'm saying, I'm not trying to, this isn't an Amanda Vanstone article in the SMH. I'm not trying to claim that young people don't care about stuff. I'm saying that I think we do, but the hardest thing for young people in particular, and I think maybe the last taboo in comedy, and why this is such an interesting experience for me, is people think the last taboo in comedy is saying something awful. No, everyone's doing that all the time. The last taboo in comedy is trying to do something genuinely and well. And I think that's something Stuart Lee, a hero of mine, talked on a bit. But this has been censored a little, but my first point is to give stuff. So I think that there's a real commodity right now for actually caring about something and putting your effort behind that. And it's a harder task than I think. And I think by being here, you've taken the first step to that. But it's very hard to make genuinely wanting to work towards something cool, because it always seems like the lame thing. To care about something, you have to put yourself on a pedestal that you can then be knocked off of. But things like, particularly for the satire world, things like The Daily Show or Last Week Tonight have shown that you can do this. There are means of doing this through alternate methods to what you would usually use. And the wonderful thing about satire is you can, in more ways than in many other fields, reward people for paying attention. That's what satire is. You get to give a piece of information that you want to give and then put a joke at the end as a kind of bit of candy for, thank you for listening. I promise if you listen to the next thing, I'll give you some more candy. It's a nice little system. So our first point I want to be on that. Our second is much more practical. What do you need to get started right now? So we are not, I am presuming in this audience, none of us really have our own breakfast show on Channel 10. And even if you do, you probably won't by next week. I've seen the ratings numbers. So what I'm saying is that if you don't really need something of this method. What we have now with media being distributed the way we have is, for the first time, media has been handed down a step in, let's say, class, to name it what it is. Instead of now needing a $10,000 camera pointed at a studio, you need the crummy webcam on your desk. You need the microphone that you can pick up for $30 at Dick Smith's. It's something that works. It's the same revolution is happening in public media now that happened in music 50 years ago. This is what this is. Punk rock and podcasting have more in common than you would think, other than being mostly full of whiny people from Manchester. It's that you can go from the first time to having the equivalent of 3 chords and a point to make. You can put down very basic things and make sure that what you are saying is worthwhile, and that's what carries. And being in this generation, we have a voice now that you don't usually get, that no other generation got the perspective of, because we don't need our information distributed by a 50-something-year-old old white newscaster telling us the facts of the day and then ending it with, and that's the way it was, because that's usually not the way it actually is. What we have now is the ability to become the voice for everyone around us. So what I want to get to from this is the third point, finding your audience and earning their attention. Now, I mean finding your audience, both in finding your voice, refining your voice, and getting, when you first start creating, I'm sure as anyone here knows, what you make just isn't up to the standard you want. There's a divide in taste where you still know exactly what you like, but what you're creating isn't there yet. And that is a matter of time to bridge those two gaps. But I also mean find your audience in a pure Carmen Sandiego, where the hell is my audience sense. Now, as I mentioned before, we don't all have a show on Channel 10. We don't really need one. As this generation knows, I think a lot of the people here, just by a wide spread, you aren't getting your information from 9 News. And you certainly aren't getting your news from it. So I think I think at this point you can go for your own methods. And this is where stuff like Facebook comes in handy. Facebook, Twitter, social media. It is so easy to really hate on these things. Trust me, I do it a lot. But social media, even apart from, say, images of cats that people have seen and babies that you don't know, there's actual genuine. I think one of the robots is loading up in the background and it's scaring the hell out of me. But so there's actual genuine use you can get out of these, and it's because when you are on social media, for all its faults, it's kind of, and forgive this metaphor, as close as we're going to get to the Roman Senate. It is the, yeah, I know, I mean because of the stabbings. No, there's so much just public opinion and voice in there. And the interesting thing about this is when information comes from one of you to your group of friends, as opposed to from on high of whatever newspaper is reporting, it becomes a personal touch. The reason that news media encourages you with giant buttons everywhere to share their articles is that they know they're better off having you put a sentence up top saying this is what I felt from this article than they are just having it on their page and trying to push you towards this page. You are already the tastemaker for you and your friends. That's why you have your friends. So by driving your thoughts and your content through this way, you can actually cause much more of an influence than really any of us have any right to. So by doing that, you earn this position by making good and honest and thoughtful stuff. And then it's as if all of us have our very own sunrise, except that no one hates us all the time. All right, I've been James Colley. Thank you very much for having me today.